Marcus Chen stood in the middle of the huge council room. Around him sat dozens of alien creatures, each more strange and powerful than the last. The room was so big that his voice echoed when he spoke. He was the only human there, representing all of Earth. The aliens were not taking him seriously. The Zephyrians looked like living glass, and their bodies glowed with different colors when they laughed. They were laughing at him now. The Kreks were huge beasts with 4 arms and thick shell-like skin. They banged their fists on their chests, making loud booming sounds. Even the ethereals, who were made of pure energy and floated in the air, seemed to be mocking him. "So the humans want to help us fight?" said High Counselor Vexithera. She was a snake-like creature, who wrapped her long body around a floating platform. Her voice was cold and mean. "What could your baby species do against the Devourer swarm?" Marcus felt his face get hot with anger, but he kept his voice calm. Humans had only met these aliens 3 years ago. Since then, Earth had been treated like a charity case. The aliens gave them technology like they were helping poor children. They looked down on humans because people still used bullets and bombs to fight wars. Humans had never traveled faster than light on their own. The Devourer swarm was eating entire star systems. They were like giant metal locusts that stripped planets bare and left nothing behind. Every big fleet sent to fight them had been destroyed. The Council was so desperate they were asking anyone to help fight, even humans, but it was clear they expected nothing from Earth. "We may be new here," Marcus said, "but humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We know about sacrifice. We know how to—" "You know nothing," interrupted General Korath. He was a Krex with scars covering his forearms. "Your species has never faced real danger. You play games with your little metal toys while real civilizations burn and die." The whole room erupted. One after another, aliens stood up to say humans were useless. They talked about how humans lived such short lives compared to them. They said human bodies were weak and fragile. They laughed at human technology, calling it backward and primitive. Some even suggested that humans should just run away and leave the fighting to real warriors. A tall blue alien with 6 eyes spoke up. "Humans cannot even survive in space without thick suits and air tanks. How can they fight creatures that live in the void itself?" Another alien that looked like a walking tree added, "Their weapons shoot tiny pieces of metal. Our enemies have armor that can stop plasma beams. What good are bullets against that?" Marcus felt the weight of representing his entire species. He looked around at beings who could destroy cities with their minds, who commanded fleets that could burn continents to ash. Maybe they were right. Maybe humans really were too weak and stupid to help. A creature made of living crystal chimed like a bell when it spoke. "Perhaps we should send them home before they get hurt. This is not a war for children." The insults kept coming. They said humans were too emotional and made bad decisions when scared. They said human technology was so old it belonged in a museum. One alien even suggested that humans might accidentally shoot their own allies because they could not tell friend from enemy in a real battle. Marcus tried to speak again. "Humans have survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars." "We have survived?" Vexthara's laugh was like breaking glass. "You have survived fights with other humans using sticks and stones. We are talking about creatures that can eat stars." The mockery went on for hours. Each species took turns explaining why humans were worthless in a galactic war. The Vormak said humans were too slow. The Nexari said humans were too stupid. The Kelvon said humans were too weak. By the end, Marcus felt smaller than an ant. Finally, Vexithara raised her hand for silence. "Very well. Since the humans insist on helping, we will give them a task." Her voice dripped with fake kindness. "There is a place called the Green Abyss. It is a nebula on the edge of known space. Several scout ships have gone missing there. Perhaps the humans can investigate and tell us what happened." Marcus knew this was busy work. They were giving humans the least important job possible. Something to keep them out of the way while real military powers made the important decisions. It was like giving a child a toy sword while adults fought real battles. "The Green Abyss?" asked another alien. "That dead space? What could possibly be there worth our time?" "Nothing important," Vexithara said with a smile that showed too many teeth. "But it will give our human friends something to do while we plan the real war." The other aliens laughed again. Some made jokes about humans getting lost in space and needing to be rescued. Others wondered if humans would run away at the first sign of danger. A few even placed bets on how quickly the human ship would break down. Marcus accepted the mission because he had no choice. His pride was crushed, but he tried to stand tall as he left the council chambers. Behind him, He could hear the aliens already moving on to more important matters, forgetting about humans completely. As he walked back to his ship, Marcus thought about Earth. His home planet was counting on him to prove that humans deserved a place among the stars. But after what just happened, he wondered if the aliens were right. Maybe humans really were too primitive and weak to matter in a galactic war. The hallways of the space station were filled with aliens who barely glanced at him. To them, he was just another primitive creature from a backward world. Some looked at him with pity, others with amusement. None looked at him with respect. When Marcus finally reached his ship, he found his crew waiting for him. They could see the defeat in his eyes, but they said nothing. They all knew what had happened in the council chambers. Word traveled fast in space, and everyone knew that humans had been given a useless mission to keep them out of the way. But Marcus was still a soldier, and he had his orders. The green abyss was waiting, and whatever was there, humanity would face it alone. As his ship prepared to leave the station, Marcus looked back at the massive structure where the galaxy's most powerful beings planned their war. He did not know it yet, but humanity's greatest moment was waiting for them in the green depths of space. The ship UNSS Defiance moved through the green mist like a ghost. The nebula stretched in all directions, a massive cloud of green energy that made their instruments go crazy. Marcus stood on the bridge with his crew of 50 people. They were the best Earth had to offer, but he knew the galaxy thought they were barely good enough to fly a garbage truck. "Commander, look at these readings," said Dr. Sarah Kim. She was the team's expert on alien artifacts and ancient civilizations. Her eyes were wide with excitement as she stared at her computer screen. "This energy is not natural. There is something artificial deep inside the nebula, something very old." Chief Engineer Rodriguez wiped sweat from his face. "Sir, this green stuff is messing with our systems. Whatever is making this nebula is sending out massive electromagnetic waves. We are flying almost blind." The nebula was like nothing they had ever seen. The green energy swirled around them in patterns that hurt to look at. Sometimes the mist would form shapes that looked almost like faces or hands reaching out to touch the ship. The crew tried not to think about what that might mean. As they flew deeper, they found the missing scout ships. But these ships were not destroyed like everyone expected. They were still in one piece, floating in the green void like ghost ships. Their hulls were perfect, but inside they were completely dark. No power, no life support, no crew. The people were simply gone. "Jesus," whispered Navigator Torres. "What happened to them? Where are all the people?" Dr. Kim scanned the empty ships with her instruments. No signs of violence, no holes in the hulls. "It is like everyone just vanished into thin air." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. These were not primitive Earth ships. They were advanced alien scouts with technology far beyond what humans could build. If something in this nebula could drain them completely, what would it do to the Defiance? "There," Torres said suddenly, pointing at the main screen. 10 degrees to the right, down 30 degrees. Through the swirling green mist, something huge appeared. At first, Marcus thought it was a moon or small planet, but as they got closer, he realized it was artificial. It was a structure so big it made the largest space stations look like toys. The thing was easily 100 times bigger than any human city. "My God," Dr. Kim breathed, her instruments going wild. "Commander, this thing is older than any known civilization. We are talking about millions of years, maybe tens of millions." The structure was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Its surface was covered in flowing curves that seemed to bend space itself. Patterns of light moved across its hull like living things. Huge tubes made of some kind of crystal snaked around its surface, glowing with the same green energy that filled the nebula. "It looks like it is alive," said Communications Officer Park. "Like it is breathing." As the Defiance got closer, they could see ports where ships could dock. But these ports were designed for vessels much larger and more advanced than anything in the current galaxy. The technology was beyond anything the crew had ever imagined. "Sir," Park reported, "I am getting a signal. It is broadcasting in over 3,000 languages at the same time, including some dead languages from Earth's history." "What does it say?" Marcus asked. Park listened to his headset for a moment, then looked up with a pale face. "Welcome, inheritors. The Forge of Eternity waits for those who would claim their birthright." The words sent shivers through the entire crew. This thing had been waiting for them. Not for aliens, not for the advanced species of the galaxy, but for them, for humans. "Commander," Dr. Kim said urgently, "the structure is responding to our presence. Systems are coming online that have been dormant for millions of years. It knows we are here. Marcus had to make a choice. Military regulations said they should report back to command and wait for orders. Common sense said they should run as fast as they could. But something deep inside him, some human instinct, told him this was important. This was why they had been sent here. "We are going to dock with it," he said. Half his crew immediately started protesting. Rodriguez said it was too dangerous. Park said they should call for backup. Dr. Kim said they needed more time to study it from a safe distance. But Marcus had made his decision. "This is why we are here. This is what we were meant to find." As the Defiance approached the docking port, something incredible happened. The port began to change shape, reshaping itself to fit their primitive human ship. It was like the ancient structure was adapting itself to accommodate their technology. The docking process was smooth despite the size difference. As their ship settled into place, the station's systems came fully alive. A low, deep sound resonated through the Defiance's hull, like the heartbeat of some massive creature. "Life support is stable on the other side," Rodriguez reported. "Atmosphere is breathable for humans. Gravity is close to Earth normal." "How is that possible?" Torres asked. "How does it know what we need to survive?" Dr. Kim was staring at her readings in amazement. "It is scanning us, learning about our biology, our technology, our needs. This station is more advanced than anything we have ever encountered." Marcus suited up with a small team to explore the structure. As they prepared to leave their ship, he could feel the weight of history pressing down on him. Whatever they found in there would change everything. He could feel it in his bones. "Stay together," he told his team. "Document everything, and be ready for anything." The airlock opened and they stepped into the ancient station. Emergency lights flickered on as they entered, as if the station had been asleep and was now waking up after millions of years. The corridors were huge, built for beings much taller than humans. The walls were covered in writing that seemed to move and change when they looked at it directly. The air smelled old but clean, like a library that had been closed for centuries. "Commander," Dr. Kim said, her voice echoing in the vast hallway, "I think we just found the most important discovery in human history." As they walked deeper into the station, Marcus could not shake the feeling that they were not just exploring an ancient ruin. They were walking into their destiny. The ancient station felt alive around them as Marcus led his team through corridors that dwarfed any human building. Their footsteps echoed in the vast spaces, and emergency lights continued to flicker on as they walked deeper inside. The walls were covered in strange writing that moved and shifted whenever they looked directly at it. Dr. Kim kept her scanners running constantly, trying to record everything they saw. "Commander, this place has been powered for millions of years. The technology keeping it running is beyond anything I have ever seen. It should be impossible." They discovered room after room filled with devices that made no sense to human eyes. Some machines seemed to bend light around themselves. Others floated in the air without any visible support. In one chamber, they found computers that were somehow thinking in ways that hurt to contemplate. "These are not just machines," Dr. Kim said in wonder. "They are thinking. They are aware of us." The team moved carefully through the station, documenting everything but touching nothing. The technology around them was so advanced it made the galaxy's most powerful civilizations look primitive. But what struck Marcus most was how the place seemed to be waiting for them specifically. Finally, they reached the center of the station. It was a massive circular chamber with a single occupant in the middle. The being lay in a crystal coffin that glowed with soft blue light. Even though it was clearly dead and had been for millions of years, its body was perfectly preserved. Marcus stared at the figure in amazement. The being was tall and elegant, with long limbs and refined features. Its face was peaceful, almost human-like, but somehow perfected. The similarity to human form was striking and impossible to ignore. "The resemblance is incredible," Dr. Kim whispered, running her scanners over the tomb. "Not human, but similar. The genetic readings I am getting suggest this species and humans share some kind of common ancestry." Around the crystal coffin, holographic displays suddenly came to life. They showed star charts from millions of years ago, when the galaxy was young and filled with species that no longer existed. As the displays shifted and changed, they began to tell a story that made the human team's blood run cold. The being in the tomb belonged to a race called the Architects. They were the galaxy's first advanced civilization, builders of impossible technology and teachers of younger species. The displays showed them at their greatest moment, vast fleets that could reshape entire star systems, technology that seemed like magic, wisdom gathered over millions of years of existence. But then the displays showed their end. A great darkness had spread across the galaxy, consuming everything in its path. Worlds were stripped bare of all life. Entire species disappeared forever. The architect's magnificent civilization fell piece by piece to something that devoured not just matter and energy, but the very essence of life itself. The Devourers, Marcus said, his voice barely a whisper. They are not new. They have done this before. The holographic story continued, showing the architect's desperate final battle. They could not defeat the Devourers in direct combat. The enemy was too adaptable, too hungry, too relentless. Instead, the architects built hidden sanctuaries like this one, placing their most powerful technologies in places where future species might find them. The station was not just a tomb or a museum. It was a vault, an armory, a final gift from a dying race to whoever might one day face the same terrible enemy. They knew, Dr. Kim said in amazement. They knew other species would eventually face the Devourers. They prepared for us. As if responding to their understanding, the station's systems fully activated. Blast doors opened throughout the structure, revealing chambers filled with weapons and technology that made the galaxy's most advanced militaries look like children playing with sticks. Marcus and his team explored room after room of wonders. There were weapons that could crack planets in half. There were shields that could withstand the heat of exploding stars. There were computers that could think faster than entire civilizations. But in the very center of the armory, they found something that made Marcus's heart race with possibilities he had never dared imagine. It was a ship, but unlike anything in the known galaxy. Its hull seemed to be made of living crystal that pulsed with internal light. Its shape was organic and flowing, as if it had grown rather than been built. Just looking at it, Marcus could feel that this vessel was something special, something that bent the laws of physics around itself. The ship's presence seemed to make space itself ripple and bend. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, like a sleeping dragon waiting to wake up. Above the ship's docking bay, words appeared in perfect English, as if the ancient station had learned their language from scanning their minds. For those who refused to yield. "Commander," Dr. Kim said, her voice shaking with excitement, "this ship was built specifically to fight the Devourers. Every system, every weapon, every piece of technology was designed to exploit their weaknesses." Marcus approached the vessel slowly. He could feel something calling to him, drawing him forward like a magnet. As he got closer, panels on the ship began to glow, responding to his presence. "The ship is waking up," Dr. Kim reported. "It is scanning you, Commander. It is choosing you." Marcus reached out and placed his hand on the ship's hull. The moment his skin touched the crystalline surface, everything changed. Knowledge flooded his mind. Not just information, but understanding. He could see the Devourers as they really were. Not unstoppable monsters, but machines with specific weaknesses that could be exploited. The ship spoke to him, not with words, but directly into his thoughts. It showed him visions of ancient battles, of architect fleets fighting desperately against the consuming darkness. It shared the accumulated wisdom of millions of years, the strategic knowledge needed to turn the tide of a war that had already lasted longer than human civilization had existed. "Commander," Rodriguez called urgently, "you need to see this. The Defiance is being changed. The station is upgrading our ship, rebuilding it from the inside out." Marcus pulled his hand away from the alien vessel and looked back at his team. They were staring at him with a mixture of awe and concern. Something had changed in his eyes, a depth that had not been there before. "What happened to you?" Dr. Kim asked softly. Marcus looked at the ancient war machine, then at his crew, then at the holographic displays still showing the galaxy's ancient history. He understood now why humans had been sent to this place. It was not punishment or busy work. It was destiny. "We are not just explorers anymore," he said quietly. "We are inheritors. The architects left all this for us, for the species that would refuse to surrender when the darkness comes again." The station hummed around them, its systems fully alive for the first time in millions of years. In the distance, Marcus could hear the Devourers calling across space, hungry for new worlds to consume. But for the first time since this war began, he was not afraid. He was ready. Marcus climbed into the alien war machine, and immediately everything changed. The ship responded to his touch like it had been waiting millions of years just for him. As he settled into what seemed to be the pilot's seat, the ship's consciousness awakened and spoke directly into his mind. "I am the Nemesis incarnate," the voice said, deep and ancient like distant thunder. "I am the last child of the architects, forged to defy entropy itself. You are smaller than my makers, but your spirit burns with the same fire that created me." The sensation was overwhelming. Marcus felt the ship's systems connecting with his brain, learning how humans thought and felt. It was like having another mind join with his own. But instead of feeling crowded, he felt complete for the first time in his life. Dr. Kim watched her instruments in amazement. "Commander, the ship is integrating with your neural patterns. It is learning from you, adapting itself to work with human biology and psychology." The process was like drinking from a fire hose made of pure knowledge. Marcus felt millions of years of tactical wisdom flooding into his consciousness. He learned about weapons that existed in multiple dimensions at once. He discovered armor that could turn enemy attacks into fuel for his own systems. Most importantly, he gained detailed knowledge about every weakness the Devourers possessed. The enemy that had terrorized the galaxy was revealed to him in perfect detail. The Devourers were not a natural force or even true aliens. They were ancient war machines from a conflict so old that the species that built them had been forgotten. They consumed matter and energy to fuel their own existence, growing stronger with each world they devoured. But the architects had found their weaknesses, and now Marcus knew them too. The Nemesis incarnate was more than just a weapon. It was a symphony of destruction. Every system designed specifically to exploit Devourer vulnerabilities. Its weapons fired rounds that existed in several dimensions simultaneously, bypassing the adaptive shielding that made the Devourers so dangerous. Its armor was made of crystalline matrices that converted Devourer disintegration beams into raw power for the ship's systems. Most importantly, the ship's consciousness could interface directly with Devourer command networks, turning their own coordination systems against them. It could make them fight each other instead of their intended targets. As the integration process continued, Marcus realized he was changing. He was still himself, still Marcus Chen from Earth, but he was becoming something more. The architect knowledge flowing through. His mind gave him perspectives on space and time that would have driven an ordinary human, consciousness insane. He could feel the ship's systems, as if they were extensions of his own body. He could perceive gravitational waves and quantum fluctuations like a normal person might see colors or hear sounds. The vast complexity of the universe opened up to him in ways he had never imagined possible. "Sir," Chief Engineer Rodriguez said carefully, watching his commander with growing concern, "the ship is doing something to the Defiance too. It is upgrading our systems, rebuilding our technology from the inside out. I do not understand how it works, but our ship is becoming something that can keep pace with this ancient vessel." Through the Nemesis incarnate's enhanced sensors, Marcus could perceive the Devourer swarm's movements across the galaxy. They were much closer than the Council realized, already consuming star systems on the outer rim, while the various species argued about battle strategies. Time was running out fast. But for the first time since humanity had encountered the galactic community, Marcus felt hope. He was no longer just the representative of a primitive species begging for acceptance. He had become the inheritor of the architect's legacy, wielding technology that made the Council's most powerful warships look like toys. "Commander," Dr. Kim said softly, "you are changing. Your brain patterns are different." "Are you still you?" Marcus turned to look at his crew, and they could see that something fundamental had shifted in his eyes. There was a depth there that had not existed before, an ancient wisdom that somehow coexisted with his essential humanity. "I am still Marcus Chen," he said, his voice carrying harmonics that had not been there before. "But I am also more than that now. I carry the memories of the architects, their knowledge, their purpose, and their determination to protect the young races of the galaxy." The ship's systems continued to integrate with his consciousness. He could feel its weapons charging, its defenses activating, its engines preparing for faster-than-light travel that transcended anything the current galaxy possessed. The Nemesis incarnate did not just move through space. It stepped through dimensions, existing partially outside normal reality. "The crew of the Defiance," the ship's voice said in his mind. "They are worthy. They carry the same spark that made your species suitable inheritors. I will protect them as I protect you." Marcus felt the ship's attention turn to his crew, and one by one, he watched as they were touched by architect technology. Not changed as dramatically as he had been, but enhanced, improved, made capable of operating systems far beyond normal human understanding. Rodriguez found himself understanding technologies that human science had never imagined. Dr. Kim gained insights into alien civilizations that spanned millions of years. Navigator Torres could suddenly perceive hyperspace routes that did not exist on any galactic map. "What is happening to us?" Torres asked, but his voice held wonder rather than fear. "You are becoming what humanity was always meant to be," Marcus replied. "The architects looked forward through time and saw our potential. They chose us not because we were advanced, but because we refused to surrender when faced with impossible odds. The transformation was not just physical or mental. The crew could feel their connection to each other strengthening, their ability to work as a team reaching levels that bordered on telepathy. They were becoming something new, still human, but human enhanced by the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever known." As the process neared completion, Marcus stood up from the pilot's seat and looked around the ship that would be his weapon in the coming battle. Every surface pulsed with contained power. Every system hummed with barely restrained destruction waiting to be unleashed. "Sir," Park reported from the communication station, "I am receiving messages from across the galaxy. The Devourer swarm has begun its final assault. Dozens of worlds are under attack simultaneously." Through the ship's sensors, Marcus could see the scope of the enemy's offensive. They were not just attacking random targets. This was a coordinated strike designed to cripple the galaxy's ability to resist. The Devourers had learned from millions of years of conquest, and they were applying that knowledge with devastating efficiency. But they had never faced the Architect's final weapon before. They had never encountered humans who refused to accept defeat. "Begin the journey back to Council space," Marcus ordered. "It is time to show the galaxy what humanity can become when we are given the proper tools." The Nemesis Incarnate and the upgraded Defiance began their voyage back to civilized space. Behind them, the ancient station went dark once more, its purpose finally fulfilled after eons of waiting. Ahead of them lay the greatest war the galaxy had seen since the Architect's time. And for the first time in this conflict, the darkness would face opponents who were not afraid of it. The young species that had been mocked and dismissed was about to become the galaxy's salvation. Marcus Chen, enhanced by architect wisdom but still carrying human determination, was ready to show the universe what happened when you underestimated Earth's children. The return to Council space created panic among the defensive fleets. The Nemesis Incarnate appeared on their sensors like a ghost, sometimes visible, sometimes not, existing partially outside normal space and time. When it finally revealed itself above the main military staging area, every ship in the massive fleet pointed their weapons at what they assumed was an advance scout for the Devourer swarm. Marcus's voice cut across all communication channels simultaneously. His words carried strange harmonics that made every piece of technology in the fleet resonate with power. He was no longer entirely human, but he was still Marcus Chen, and his message was delivered with very human directness. "This is Commander Chen of the United Nations Space Service. I am calling an emergency council session. We have work to do." The council chamber that had once witnessed humanity's humiliation now hosted its revelation. Marcus did not walk through the doors like a normal person. Instead, he simply appeared in the center of the chamber, stepping through space itself as if distance meant nothing to him. The beings who had mocked his species' weakness now stared in amazement and fear. High Counselor Vexithara's serpentine form coiled tighter around her platform as she tried to understand what she was seeing. "The Devourer swarm will reach the core worlds in 18 hours, Marcus announced, and the chamber erupted in panic. Their own intelligence report said the swarms were still weeks away. They have been using dimensional shortcuts, tactics they learned from consuming the Architects millions of years ago. Every strategy you have planned, every defensive position you have prepared, they have seen it all before. How could a human possibly know such things?" Vexithara demanded, but her voice was no longer filled with contempt. Now it carried genuine fear. She stopped speaking as Marcus raised his hand, and space itself seemed to bend around the gesture. Where once had stood a lone human in a borrowed uniform, now stood something far more impressive. He was still recognizably Marcus Chen, but enhanced, elevated, carrying the authority of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful civilization. "Because the architects left us the tools to finish what they started," he said calmly. "The green abyss was not empty space. It was a testing ground, and humanity passed the test." Over the next few hours, the galaxy's understanding of everything changed completely. Marcus shared the architect's strategic knowledge, revealing the Devourer's true weaknesses and the specific tactics needed to exploit them. More importantly, he demonstrated technologies that could turn desperate last stands into coordinated surgical strikes. The aliens who had dismissed human courage now found themselves following Marcus's tactical leadership. The species that had mocked human limitations discovered that humans enhanced by architect consciousness could process information faster than their most advanced computers. General Korath, the Krex warrior who had called humans weak, now listened in amazement as Marcus explained battle formations that used the enemy's own strength against them. "These tactics," Korath admitted grudgingly, "they are brilliant. How did your species develop such strategies?" "We did not," Marcus replied simply. "The architects did. They fought the Devourers for millions of years before they fell. Every lesson they learned, every victory and defeat, all of it was preserved for whoever would inherit their legacy. The transformation was not limited to Marcus alone. The enhanced crew of the Defiance had become living bridges between human determination and architect wisdom." Dr. Kim could now read alien technology like a book written in her native language. Rodriguez understood engineering principles that made the galaxy's best scientists look like children. Torres could navigate hyperspace routes that existed in dimensions most species could not even perceive. When the Devourer swarm finally arrived, they encountered something they had never faced before. Instead of scattered, desperate resistance, they met a unified force wielding weapons designed specifically to destroy them. The battle was not easy. The Devourers had consumed countless civilizations and learned from each victory. But for the first time in this war, they began to lose. Marcus led the final assault personally. The Nemesis incarnate moved through the enemy formations like a ghost ship, phasing in and out of normal space. Its weapons turned the Devourer's own adaptive technology against them, while its enhanced shields converted their disintegration beams into fuel for even more devastating attacks. The most spectacular moment came when Marcus used the ship's consciousness to invade the Devourer command networks. Suddenly, entire formations of enemy vessels turned on each other, their programming rewritten to transform destroyers into constructors, consumers into protectors. The galaxy watched in amazement, as humanity, the species the Council had written off as too primitive to matter, delivered the killing blow to an enemy that had haunted civilizations for longer than most species had existed. The Devourer swarm did not just retreat, it was systematically dismantled, its core programming altered at the fundamental level. In the aftermath, as debris from millions of destroyed Devourer units drifted through space, Marcus stood once again before the Council. But this time he was not requesting humanity's inclusion in galactic civilization. This time, he was announcing humanity's role as its protectors. "The architects chose us not because we were the strongest or the smartest," he told the assembled representatives. "They chose us because we were the most determined. They looked forward through time and saw a species that would never surrender, never accept extinction as inevitable. The aliens who had once competed to insult humanity now competed for human alliance. The young race from the Outer Rim had become the inheritor of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful technology. But more than that, they had proven that advancement was not measured in years or technology alone, but in the willingness to stand up for others when everything seemed hopeless. Pexthara, her voice now filled with respect instead of mockery, asked, "What will humanity do now? You have power beyond our greatest imagination. You could rule the galaxy if you wished." Marcus smiled, and in that smile was both human warmth and architect wisdom. "We will do what humans have always done when given the chance. We will protect those who cannot protect themselves. We will stand watch so others can live in peace." He paused, looking around at the representatives of dozens of species, beings who had dismissed his people as worthless primitives just days before. "But remember this," he continued, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "The strength to protect others begins with refusing to see any species as inferior. The architects made that mistake once, believing themselves superior to the younger races. We will not make that error again. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had not just won a war. They had redefined what it meant to be powerful in a galaxy full of ancient civilizations. Every species here has value, Marcus said. Every culture has something to contribute. The Devourers succeeded for so long because they convinced us to see each other as competition instead of family. That ends now. As he prepared to leave, several council members tried to offer humanity positions of leadership, seats of honor, tributes of wealth and territory. Marcus declined them all. We do not want to rule, he said simply. We want to serve. The galaxy is safe for now, but safety requires eternal vigilance. Humanity accepts that responsibility. The species that had mocked humans for being too young, too weak, and too primitive now understood a fundamental truth about the universe. Sometimes salvation comes not from the oldest or strongest civilizations, but from those who have everything to prove and nothing left to lose. As Marcus and his crew prepared to return to their duties as the galaxy's new guardians, he thought about Earth and the long journey that had brought humanity to this moment. They had been underestimated, dismissed, and humiliated, but in the end, those very experiences had prepared them for their true purpose. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as supplicants begging for acceptance, but as the protectors of everything that made galactic civilization worth preserving. The young species from the third planet of an unremarkable star system had become the inheritors of the greatest legacy in the galaxy's history, and they were just getting started.